Okay, so here we go. I have to say, I think out of all the battery tests I've done in the past, this is the one I'm most excited about, that I'm most anticipating, because these are supposed to be, according to some marketing and influencer claims, I don't know about influencer, but I believe that these are supposed to be the highest power, highest performing tablet cells on the market today. There's some claims floating around, and I'm going to put on the screen here obviously and clarify it, but there's been some claims that the RS50 Reliance is even more powerful, even better performing than the EVE50PL. So I've got here the RS40s. These are the purple guys there, if you can see, purple, and then the silver are RS50. There we go, RS50. I've got quite a few, 5 I believe of each. Yeah, 5 of each. And I got them from 2 of my trusted suppliers, VapeCell on Alibaba, VapeCell and Boot Energy. So the cells that are numbered 1 and 2 from each, 1 and 2 there, those are from Boot Energy. And then the cells that are 3, I wrote VC on there. The cells that are 3, 4, and 5, those are from VapeCell. So I'm going to start this test with the RS40s. I know that I think most people are really excited and looking forward to the RS50 because that's the direct competitor to the 50PL. But I'm going to start with the RS40. Let's see how that compares to other tablets. Especially interested to see how these compare to the Ampace, which I have built a battery pack with, and then obviously the RS50. Now the thing is, at the time that this video comes out, you will have already seen the EVE50PL video. That is coming out before the Reliance video. However, at the time I'm recording this, I am still, after 6 months, still waiting for the EVE50PL production cells to come. I'm expecting them within about 10 days or so. But I have tested the EVE50PL pre-production. So I kind of did the first half of the EVE50PL test and video already. So I've got those results. So we will be able to compare these cells with the pre-production 50PL. And then after I get those production cells in, I will test those and see how they compare. If there's a significant difference, then of course I'll make a note on this video, an addendum, and explain how the difference is between the production 50PLs. But everybody's been waiting for those for half a year, so can't wait any longer. Anxious to test these, so let's get going. We'll run through all the tests on the Reliance RS40s first. 4,000 milliamp hours, direct competitor to the Ampace and the EVE40PL, and then we're going to go for the one that is supposed to be the king in the market now, the direct competitor to the 50PL from this new company on the market, Reliance. But they're really making a splash, and a lot of people are talking about them, and they are concentrating on high power, high energy draw tablet cells. So that's really cool for the E-moto market. So let's get going. Excited to do this. Okay, package, another one that I've been waiting for a long time. Just arrived today. This is my 5th day straight of doing battery tests from 7 a.m. till midnight or 1 a.m. From Encon RS50s. Let's see what the batch number is and put them on test. So from Encon, these are batch F6V. That sounds familiar to me. Let's look at the other ones from Alibaba. Okay, Encon cells are marked 6 and 7. Okay, so a really quick background. What is Reliance Battery? Who is this new player on the market? Who are they? Well, Reliance New Energy is a company building these. They're a Chinese company. They're a new company, and they're a division of Reliance Industries, which is a company based in India. So that's who Reliance New Energy is. Now, what's exciting about this company is they are concentrating on lithium-ion batteries, tablet cells, and high-power cells, high-capacity batteries that are also high power. So they're concentrating on really high performance, and that for me is super exciting. They're going after the OEM market, obviously, for power tools, motorcycles, all kinds of things like that. The RS50, which is what we're all kind of excited about and looking at here, has many people excited in the E-moto community, e-skate. You know, people are super excited about that. But when I researched Reliance, what I found that was really exciting is they have a product roadmap for even higher capacity cells, which is absolutely nuts, which we'll talk about in a second here. Other thing that's really cool, they are doing only tabless cells, so concentrating just on tabless technology, which, you know, as I've shown in my test, provides the highest performance, much better performance compared to traditional tab cells. So that's great. About the product roadmap again, now obviously what's released to the market is the RS40 and the RS50. So 4,000 milliamp hours and 5,000 milliamp hours. The power output ratings, maximum discharge, pulse, and all that ratings are pretty much the same. The main difference is capacity. You'll see in the testing how they perform and how they compare to each other here in my tests. But what's really cool is, look here, we've got RS60, RS65, and yes, even RS70. And you probably guessed what that means correctly, which is 6,000 milliamps, 6,500 milliamps, and 7,000 milliamp tabless cells. Absolutely nuts. Looking at the specs here, it looks like they trade off a little bit of power in order to have higher capacity, but still, tabless power and up to 6,000 and 7,000 milliamp hours, absolutely nuts. What I see also when I research them is they're super active promoting their company and the tabless cells in trade shows, different, you know, battery fairs and things like that. They're promoting, you know, tabless high power very much, which is super cool. The other thing that I noticed is I looked at the dealers who are selling these cells, the big dealers like VapeCell, B-Cell Energy, and the other Alibaba dealers that I work with, and they are really actively marketing and promoting these cells. They're promoting, first of all, just the cells attributes by themselves. Here's from B-Cell, how much power they have, that it's a 5,000 milliamp cell, 70 amps continuous discharge, 500 plus cycles, even with test charts and all that. So they are, from what I see, doing a much better job marketing and promoting these cells than EVE is, which has been a total debacle, as I described in my previous video about the distribution and the introduction of the 50PL and the whole pre-production thing. So their dealers are doing a really good job promoting, and even more importantly, they're comparing them to what's currently on the market, especially the P50B. The P50B, like I said, has been kind of the benchmark of a high quality, high capacity, high quality cell for a long time. So they're doing direct comparisons here of the RS50 with the P50B. They tested it. They tested voltage discharge. They tested cycle life. They tested temperature, endurance tests, and all that. Here they're talking about the safety test, which is very important. So they're showing here overcharge test passed, short circuit survival, exactly the opposite of what we're seeing with EVE, which is many cells on the market without even a printed safety certification. We have no idea what the safety is. And here's another dealer showing a comparison of the RS50 versus the P50B. So they're really actively and aggressively marketing these cells, which is super cool, because I haven't seen anybody else do this. Certainly EVE isn't doing it. Molicel isn't promoting them as a high power cell. Reliance is really actively comparing them to what's on the market and showing how they're better. One thing that's really neat also I found here, they're talking about low temperature performance, that these cells have been tested and are really marketed as having great low temperature, super cold temperature performance. So that's awesome. And then the other thing is, like I mentioned in the previous video, the P50B, Molicel had a big factory fire, and so their supply chain is limited. So the dealers are promoting the RS50 as a drop-in replacement that's better and cheaper, you know, than the Molicel P50B. So really cool job. They're doing a great job marketing. Their dealers are promoting it. So, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, marketing, they get a 10. EV gets a 0. And here, lastly, I mentioned about the claim that it's better than the 50PL. Well, Reliance themselves, I need to clarify, they have never said that as the factory. The company has not said that, but some dealers have made comparisons claiming that the RS50 beats the 50PL. So you're going to see here in my testing, is that true or not? But in general, really exciting cell from their marketing, you know, how they're promoting it, how they're testing it. Very, very cool. So that's why I was very excited about this cell. Okay, and just to show some numbers here quickly for comparison, in this test, the Ampace, also 4,000 milliamp hours. Ampace did 369, 367, plus 3.5, plus 4 degrees. The EVE 40PL did much worse, 360, 360, if you can see that, plus 3.8 Celsius. Back 45D did 367. So we're looking at really a comparison with the JP40 of 367, 369 compared to the EV50PL. Obviously, that's right now that's the record holder. We're at 371. This first RS40 only at 363, and that's what plus 3.8 degrees. The Molicel P50B was at 363. And like I said, the JP40, that's kind of my reference for the first generation, was 369, 367. On this first test, constant 5560, vis-a-vis the Ampace JP40, we did 364 and 363, so pretty consistent. First one was plus 3.8, second one was plus 2.4. That's like an incredibly good temperature performance. But 364, 363, and like I said, JP40 was 367, 369, so did quite a bit better. EV50PL was worse, 360, and even the back 45D did 367. So besides being 0.2, I know it's too bright, 0.2 worse than the EVE temp increase was 4.1, both of them, and we're at 26.5 minus 19.8, so 6 plus 6.7. So I haven't measured the IR of these yet. I'm going to do after this first test, but that performance, I mean, the more voltage drop and more temp increase and greater voltage drop, that seems to indicate more internal resistance in the cell, but we'll see. So, well, they were consistent. We did 374 and 373, plus 4.2 and plus 4.8. No, obviously the 50PLs did quite a bit better, but main question is, how does that compare to the Ampace JP40s? Those did 377, 376, so 374 and 373. Again, did worse than the JP40. What was our temp increase? Plus 5.4 and plus 5.6. Well, we had a little lower temp increase, which is good. The EV40PLs did 370, so these did better than that. The back 45D did 375, so these did worse than that. But like I said, I think the JP40 is really the basis for comparison, and this did voltage drop. It did worse, but it had a little better temp increase, which is a little unusual. But anyway, yeah, so far no real improvement in performance over the JP40. Actually a little worse. What are we at now? 28.4. Long story short, let's fix exposure here. So mixed load, we did consistent, quite consistent, 379, 378. However, worse than the 50PL. They did 380 and 381. Not a huge difference, but not great, because these I was hoping would perform better, and they did worse. So second test that they've done worse than the 50PL. Temp increase. This mess here is 6.0 plus, which is really good, plus 7.2, 50PL, 6.0, and 5.3. So EV50PL did better on both temp and voltage drop. Interesting, huh? What did the Molicels do? 369 and 370. So yeah, both of these tablets obviously did way better than the Molicel, plus 8 and plus 7. So yeah, 2 tests down, and 2 tests where they have not exceeded the EVEs, which is I was hoping that they would do better. So seeing a pattern, there's a result. 363, 362. The JP40 did 366, there's 23 amps, and 367. Temp, we'll have to look at in a sec. But I'm seeing a pattern here. I mean, we'll see if it continues, but so far, these are all performing. I mean, all tests, the Reliance 4000 milliamp are performing a little bit worse than the Ampace JP40. So then the question becomes, what's the compelling reason to buy the RS40, unless it's significantly cheaper, but the JP40 is already a very inexpensive cell. Maybe if these can be proven to have longer cycle life, but I don't know. So we'll see. We'll keep going on the higher tests and see how they do. Okay, so for a quick recap, our comparison was with the 50PL. Those did 368, both of them. Both of these, Reliance RS50, did 366, so worse. No, only slightly worse, but worse. What about temperature? The EVs were pretty consistent. They did plus 7.3 and plus 7.7. Here we're at plus 9.8 and plus 8.9. So a couple degrees worse temp increase. So worse voltage drop, worse temp increase, which kind of bums me out. How does it compare to the Molicel P50B? 357, 356, and plus 10 and 1190. So yeah, both of these perform, you know, pretty significantly better than the P50B, but that's really not, the P50B really isn't its competition. It's the other tabless cells. So yeah, third test and third time that the RS50s perform worse. Keep in mind, again, these are the EV pre-production EV50PL. Has been waiting for the production for half a year, but by the time I finish this test, I'll have the production ones here and post if there's any difference. But look at, like, just now at 30 amp, we had 384, because I noticed it did really well on the 30 amp as well. 392, that's even better than the 50 PL on initial voltage drop. And look at on 30 amps here, no, I said on 23. On 30, we're at 384 initial voltage drop. Look at the 50 PL, 375 initial voltage drop. Look at the Ampace JP40, 376, 375, 371 for the 40 PL. So JP40 is 375, and voltage drop initial on here at 30 amp is 384. So that's really interesting, because just briefly, it brings up a point, which is, I think initial voltage drop in some ways is more important than the voltage drop after 3 minutes. Obviously, the overall, you know, to say it again, initial voltage drop, both of these were really close, 383 and 384. Even the EVE 50 PLs were at 375. I didn't write that other one down. So significantly better, significantly less voltage drop. And the JP40s were at 375 and 376. So these RS40, and haven't even tested the RS50, but the RS40. Here's an interesting thing I just noticed. I'm looking at initial voltage drop. Hope you can see this. 379, like we just showed, at 30 amps. So it did better, 375, than the 50 PL, which is interesting. But look at this, the RS40s did 384 and 383. So the RS40s did better for initial voltage drop at 30 amps than this RS50. Again, interesting that both of these 30 amp initial voltage drop, we did 380 and 379. They both did better than the 50 PL, 375. That's a pretty decent amount better. But what's even, like I said, kind of wilder on the RS40s, and I'll have to test. I'm gonna throw all the cells I have here on a 30 amp test, just to test for consistency once there's time. But anyway, the RS40s, like I said, did 387 and 389. No, I'm sorry, that's 387. They did 389 and 392. So the RS40 even did the best of everything for initial voltage drop. And like I said, that's kind of really the kick in the butt feeling that you get of acceleration off a stop. Okay, so just really quick look at the results. So both cells were consistent. They did 353 voltage drop after 3 minutes, 30 amps. But again, they perform worse. The EV50PLs did 357, 355. Where were the RS40s at? 348, 348, so it did better than that. Molicel P50B 341, so way better than the P50B, so that's significant. Temp increase, plus, again, consistent, plus 17, plus 17.5, and the 50PL did plus 17.2. The RS40s did 17.5 and 13. So anyway, I mean, close, very close performance to the 50PL pre-production. Okay, let's look briefly at the results. There's one thing that stands out to me here. Two things, actually, I'll tell you really quick. First, great consistency, super consistency between these three cells and the other ones, all within 100th of a volt. So it's great. It means great, quality control and production. Also means my testing I'm doing repeatedly, accurately, which is really good. Got audio okay? Yeah. And the RS40s, again, same thing, great consistency. The thing that really stood out to me, though, and I mentioned it briefly in the main test, but it's just blown me away now, is look at initial voltage drop on the RS40s, okay? Now you need to you need to put it in a context to appreciate it. But 30 amps, okay, voltage drop initially, these three with 380, 380, and 380, super consistent. The other two and the main test at 383 and 384, I think that's really an issue of temperature. These all, you know, it's 6 a.m. here, it's ambient temp is like 19, 20 Celsius, so these all started colder. So the other ones did a little bit better. But to put into context, okay, the 50PL, which is the best performing overall cell, period, on the market that I've tested so far, and bigger capacity, which is 25% more capacity, 50PL did 375, and look at the RS40, a little 4,000 milliamp cell, did 383, 384, and now 380 in colder temperatures. Even better initial voltage drop than the RS50s, which did 375, 376, 378. So the king of all cells that I've tested for initial voltage drop, and like I said, initial voltage drop is important because that's that, you know, seat of the pants torque that you get right off the starting line. The initial voltage drop king is the RS40. And just to show here, here's 30 amp. So the other RS50s there did initial voltage drop 380. So we're lined up with that. We're looking for ending voltage of 383. Now, how does that compare to the EV50PL pre-production? These were 355 and 357. So they actually did better, the pre-production ones, at least haven't got production yet, they did better than the RS50. So the other RS50s I tested did 353. So here's your results from the 30 amp 353, 353. Here's the previous RS50s, 353, 353. And just to show for comparison, the number we're looking to match here, on the amp pace, 35 amps, we're at 342 and 342 and plus 21, 22 Celsius. EV40PL with 337, what did I say, 342? And then the, hope I have it in the right spot, the EV50PL 35 amp with 348 and 347. So overexposed. 35 amps. 50 PLs did 347, 348, almost identical. So that is our benchmark we're looking to beat. Okay, so just a quick recap. 40 amps, we ended up at 324. The 50 PLs were 339 and 338, so much better. The amp paces were 331 and 330, so worse performance, definitely quite a bit after 3 minutes. Amp paces were plus 22C, and here I just calculated we're plus 25C. The 50 PLs actually had a little more temp gain, plus 25.8 and plus 28. So that's good, but I think the thing that really stands out, and you know, a trend here on these RS40s, look at the initial voltage drop, 40 amps, 361. We were at 360, so about equal, a little better than the 50 PL, and 364, 364, so a little bit worse than the, and 368, a little bit worse than the amp pace. But in general, after 3 minutes, all the tests here are showing a little worse performance than the JP40. Let's get our exposure corrected. Okay, first, you see that okay? We're looking at 35. 35 is here. So with the Reliance, we just did 343. And as I said, the EV50PLs did 347, 348. So did worse, not hugely worse, but still worse. I mean, the RS40s did a 339. Temp increase, we did, you see that, 22.1 plus. EVs did plus 20 and plus 19.4. So EV 50PL, better performance temperature, better performance voltage drop. Okay, that's the short version. And they did a lot better than the Molicel 330. 40 amps. You see that? Where we did it? 40 amps, 335. And like I said, we were looking to beat 338, 339. So no, again, EV 50PLs did better. Not a night and day difference, but they still did better. Reliance didn't beat basically in anything, but I'll show you one exception. Plus 27.8, we did plus 25, no, essentially 26 and 28, so about the same temp increase. But one thing I noticed that this cell did do really well was initial voltage drop. It had 368 at 40 amps. Look at the EVs, did 360 and 359. What did the RS40 do? 361. So that's kind of interesting. So the one area where Reliance did the best is the record holder is 40 amp initial voltage drop, which, like I said, is actually really important. That's what you feel the torque in your butt off the line. It actually did the best out of every cell at 40 amps for initial voltage drop. So at least Reliance is in first place in one category, one area. In-depth comparisons I'll do later because it's midnight, but I'll just say quickly, at 50 amps, we were, after 2 minutes, Reliance was 327, and if you can see that, Ampace JP40 50 amps was 328, so a little bit better. But initial voltage drop, temp, all that stuff, we'll do analysis a little later in the video. Good night. Okay, I didn't do the temp calculation yet, but voltage drop was worse. So we ended up, where's 50? 333. Sorry for the mess, I'll do a nice chart. 333 after 2 minutes, and the PLs were 337, 337. So not a huge difference, but yeah, not great. 21.4 and 46.4, well, that's easy to calculate. It's plus 25, and here we were plus 23 and plus 24. You can see that. So temp increase is pretty similar. Let's widen that out a little. Temp increase is similar, but yeah, like all the tests have been showing, the Reliance is doing worse than the 50PL. Disappointing a little bit. Is the 50PL 50 amps? Did 337 and 337 after 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, let's briefly go over, darken it down, briefly go over these results. So, now we already talked about 50 amps that we're at 333, and the EVs did 337. So, 60 amps, initial voltage drop was 350. These were EVEs, can you see that? Were 349 and 352. Let's make it a little wider. 349 and 352. This was 350, so about the same. But after 2 minutes, 60 amps, Reliance was 324, EVE was 326 and 329. So not a huge difference, but again, keeping with the theme of pretty much everything, I thought maybe the Reliances would do better. You know, they were holding out for the high amp test to really show their stuff, but no. At least compared to these pre-production EVs, obviously waiting for the full production ones, like I've said a million times. When I get those, I'll test them. When I get the RS50s from Encon, test those to see if there's any difference. But for what I have so far, which is Reliance from Alibaba, 2 different suppliers, and EVE pre-production from Alibaba, so far, EVE is pretty unquestionably the best performing tablet cell I've ever tested, and the best performing 21700 cell in general. Okay, so while this last one's finishing up here, I want to go over this little handy dandy chart that I made. Here's the results. I'll talk about them more once I finish all the capacity tests, but I want to just talk for a second about the 3 amp there and the 5 amp there that I did. 3 amp here and 5 amp. I was pretty impressed that the capacity didn't go down that much at 5 amp. This one is kind of an outlier. It looks like it's a little lower than the others. But I want to talk about, in E-moto terms, how much power is that, and for a surround or E-moto. So let's take an example here. Say you have an E-moto with a 72 volt battery, and that battery is 20S9P, 9 cells in parallel. So if you're pulling 3 amps per cell, that means you have 9 parallel times 3 amps, 27 amps. Well, how much power is that? You multiply your amps times your volts, and that gives you 2160 watts. Now, what does that mean for speed, or really how fast you're going? Well, it's not much, not much power really, but I think it's enough to maintain about 20 to 25 miles an hour, of a steady speed. So that's what 3 amps per cell translates to. Now let's look at 5 amps per cell. How much capacity we had there. And remember, 5 amps is gives you less than an hour of riding. It's pulling at 1.25 C, so it's even less than an hour. So 5 amps, you got 9P times 7 amps, 45 amps, same equation, 3600 watts. So that's about 30 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more than 30 miles an hour. So anyway, just a quick example of these amp draws, how much it translates to in real life. But I've seen in the media some claims that these are outperforming even the EV50PL, which, if that's true, of course, would put them on the top tier. Now, at the time of doing these Reliance tests, I have only tested the pre-production EVE50PLs, as I've been waiting for them for half a year like everybody else has. But by the time when this video is released, I will have hopefully received the production units from Encon, tested those, and we'll be able to put on this video, to verify whether or not, what is on the top podium performance. So anyway, I'll stop talking. Let's get to the test on the RS50. Oh, just a quick thing to mention, the RS50s I have here, I have from 2 different sources, just like the RS40s. Some are from VapeCell, some are from Boot Energy. They're both reliable suppliers, reputable suppliers that I bought from before. They're both from different batches, which is good, so we can see if there's any variation. And the other thing is, I do have 2 coming from Encon, and I assume, obviously, those are full production. I've been told these are full production too, but like I said, the whole deal with pre-production and misinformation is really crappy. So I'm going to also test the Encon ones to use those as a comparison. So, okay, anyway, enough talking. Let's get to the testing. Okay, so here we go with my first test of the first Reliance cell, RS40. So this is RS40 number 1, which is from Boot Energy. Number 3 was from VapeCell. We're doing, like traditionally, going to do the constant 5560, 10 minutes at 10.416 amps. Our starting temp is 23.6. You can see that, 23.6. Starting temp, and 23.5, and here we go. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes here, 10.4 amps, 25.6. Wow, that's great. We're only +2 Celsius. That's really cool. +2 Celsius after 5 minutes at 10 amps. That's great. So 5 minutes, we are at 383. And really impressive that only up 2 degrees. That's 5 minutes going 60 miles an hour. You're only up 2 degrees Celsius. And I have to say, I don't know if you can see that there clearly, it's not looking good because we're only at 8 minutes and we're at 370. You hear me okay? Yeah, I got audio. We're at 370 and there's still 2 minutes left on the test, so that's not looking great. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes here, and I gotta say, unfortunately, it's not looking great for this first Reliance RS40. Like I said, the amp paces did 369, 367. We're already down to 364. EV40PLs did 360, so it looks a little better than that, but those were not great performance. Okay, here we go. 363 and 27.3. Okay, that previous one was actually number 3 cell. So this is number 1, RS40. Charged it again fully. Starting temp 25.0, and we're doing the constant 5560. 10 minutes, so 24.9 starting temp. Here we go. .406 initial voltage drop. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes. We're at 26.1. 26.1. And 384. 27.3 and 364. 27.3 and 364. So we're starting with a constant 5560, 10.4 amps. We're at a low 19.8 starting temperature and 19.8. And here we go. 403 is our initial voltage drop. Okay, and just one thing to note here. We're at 4 minutes and 8 seconds, so not at 5-minute mark yet. I know this is going to be overexposed. For comparison, 5-minute mark, the 50 PLs were at 387 each, both 387. Molicel P50B, I don't have what that was at 5 minutes, but for comparison, so the EV50L were 387, and we're at 387 now. We're not at 5 minutes yet. Okay, coming up to 5 minutes. We're at 23.8 and 386. No, not a huge difference, but yeah, it's a little lower. Okay, so as a reference, I know it's going to be overexposed. The 50 PLs were both 371 at the end of this test, 371. We're at 9 minutes 27 seconds and we're at 371. 26.5 and 369. Okay, so second Reliance RS50, number 3. Yeah, I tried to warm this one up a little bit. Let's see where we end up temperature-wise. I put on the radiator. I held it in my hot little hand. You know, the first one didn't perform as good as I was hoping. It's first test. We'll see how it does in higher load. But, you know, it was cold a little bit. Isn't that the excuse we guys use too? If we get out of the cold shower and the wife sees us, we say, no, it's not normally like this. It's cold. So hopefully that's the case with this cell too. Hopefully it's not normally like this. It's only 20 degrees. Anyway, so we're settled at 23.2. We need to, it would be help if I reset this timer, huh? And we gotta now go back to 10, 4, and 6. Okay, so 23.1, starting temp, a little warmer. Hopefully it does a little better. .404 initial. Okay, so this one's a little warmer. Gonna come back at 5 minutes and 10 minutes, see how she does. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes here. Where's my pen? We're already at 387, which is what the 50 PL did. 25.4. Stay at 387, come on. There we go. 25.3, 387. So, tied the 50 PL. Okay, where we at? We're at 9 minutes, 373, and again, the EV50 PL did 371, Molicel P50B did 363. Well, it looks like the cold excuse that you gave the wife isn't going to work, because we're already below the EVEs. 369, consistent. So we're at 27.5 and 369. So both of them did the same and worse. While we are waiting, and this test is running, gonna put number 3, the first one I tested, of RS40, on the internal resistance tester. It's back to room temperature. And it was after just running that first test. Oh, that's a good low number. Let's make sure we're nice, good connection there. Oh, it just went up. Completely dependent on how hard the terminals are touching. So 284, we'll call it 284. Okay, and let's do this RS40 number 1 for IR. I let it sit and rest for about 5 minutes after that test, so we should be back to room temperature. Oh, that's a really nice low reading, 269. How does that compare to the EV50L? 286. 269, wow, that's a really good low reading. Great IR, 3.80 volts. So, 269 IR, great reading. Let's do IR for the first one. So this is first one. It ran the first test only, then it's rested for like, I don't know, 6-7 minutes. Oh, there you go, you can see. 292 it looks like. 292, which is not better than the best cell. Well, we'll see how the other ones do. Okay, so after the first test, the cell is rested for a few minutes. After discharge, this is number 3, RS50. Let's see how she does. Well, that's good. Well, it's definitely lower than the first one. I think I need to check the first one again, because Okay, putting the first one on again. This test is super sensitive to how good the connection is too. You're measuring just micro amounts of, very small amounts of internal resistance. Let's see, where were we at before? 292? Well, yeah, you can see how you attach it. I got the optimum connection. No, still 292. So yeah, some variation because the number 3 did quite good, 273. This one did 292. So have to check out some other ones and see where they're at. Okay, so while we are, again, like always, waiting for stuff to charge, I have 5 of each cell, which if I did the full batch of tests would take like 2 weeks from 7 a.m. till midnight. So on these other 3 of each one, I'm just going to do the ACIR test, and then I'm going to do the 30 amp test and see how those go. So let's get started on that with ACIR. Here we've got RS40, if you can see that, RS40 number 4 from VC, vape cell. So RS40 number 4. This, by the way, is straight out of the box, so that's the voltage it came at. Ooh. Can I get it better? Not really? Okay, we're going to call it 300. So RS40 number 4 is 300. Okay, that's done. Like I said, these are straight out of the box. No charge cycles, no charging, no discharging. Brand new out of the box. 297, let's call it. So that's vape RS40 number 2, RS40 number 2, and 297. RS40 number 2, 297. Okay. Okay, next we've got RS40, make that a little low. RS40 number 5. Now this was just charging, just starting to charge for like an hour or so. So let's see if it being on charge and maybe warmed up a degree or 2, if that lowers it. That's kind of interesting. So we are 287, let's call it. 287. I'm going to put on these first 2 OOB new, and on this one I'm going to put charged a little bit. You can see it's at 3.75 volts, just a little bit. It's been on charge maybe an hour. So okay, next we got these 3 RS50s, which have not been through any tests at all, but I did just have them on charging, and they're just slightly warmer than room temperature. So we'll see. I think that even though ACIR is not affected so much, that seems to make a difference. We'll call that 280, number 4, 280, charged a little, and you can see we're 375. Okay, and again, same case for these other 2. So this is number 5. It's been on charge for maybe 45 minutes. It's a little bit warm to the touch. Yeah, 376 volts. Ooh, that's really low. So number 5, 264, we'll call it. No, there's a variation in these. Again, these have no full charge or discharge cycles. These cells are brand new. They've been sitting, just in the box until now. Just been on charge to run the 30 amp test. Okay, and finally number 2. Oh, that's really low. 261, let's call it 261. Okay, so there's the results for the 40s, RS40s, those 3. There's the results for the RS50s. Okay, giving them a couple minutes to cool down after that test. Let's check ACIR. Okay, number 7 first. 265, 266. That's a nice low reading. Cool. Okay, and the other one, this is number 6. And that's a really nice low reading. 261, let's call it 262. 262. And just to note, both of these, I gave them like 3-4 minutes after the test to kind of cool off. They're both slightly above ambient, slightly warm to the touch. So okay, mixed load. 2 quick things I forgot to mention before. On both of these RS40 and RS50, the 2 different cells I'm testing here are from different batches, so that's good. I want to see how the variation might be between batches. And on the RS50, I have 2 cells coming from NCON. They'll be here before when I finish this test, so I'm going to test the NCON ones as well to make sure that they're consistent, or see if there's any difference between those and the Alibaba cells. So anyway, mixed load, 23 for 7 seconds, 12 amps for 23 seconds. Starting temp 23.7. I just wrote 23.9, so we'll just keep 23.9. Mixed load, so 23 and 12. We're recording. Audio's okay. Okay, here we go. Well, we're already below what the amp pace did. Amp pace, like I said, we're 376 and 377. Okay, temp 28.7, 373. Okay, Reliance RS40 number 1, mixed load. Starting temp 25.2, 25.1. I wrote it as 25.0. Okay, mixed load 23 and then 12 amps. Here we go. And looks like we're going to be the same. We're at 29.2, 374, 29.2, 29.1. So 29.2, 374, slightly better. Okay, after a very, very long pause, we are back for mixed load test. Yeah, let's do this and get it done with. So we just got off the charger, fully charged, and yes, let's go. So 19.9 starting temp. Hold on, need to write that down. 19.9. This is RS50 number 1. Okay, here we go. 23 and 12. Okay, that was the last high 23 amp, and we are lower than the 50 PL. No, it's not a night and day difference, but it is less. You know what? I didn't. Holy shit! I didn't do delta T. I will on that one. 378, 20.1. I didn't do the temp connection. Oh shit. Okay. We'll do temp on the next one. Actually, we can kind of get a temperature reading. I'll take what the ambient is on the other one and use that as a starting because they're both in the same conditions. So now, ending temp 30.0, but we have to assume that went up a little bit after 29.7. So we'll call it 29.7 and see what the other one is at ambient. Okay, let's try this again with RS50 number 3. Starting temp, this time I will have a temp sensor on it, 22.3, so I take that as a starting temp for the other one since they're both charging next to each other, same conditions. So mixed load, 23 and 12 amps. Here we go. Okay, 22.3. amp, starting temp. 23.7. $3.92. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. And 23, 371. The number to beat at 3 minutes, the Ampace GP40 did 366. 366 and 367. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. Not better than the Ampace, unfortunately. So we're at 31.0 and 363. Okay, RS40 number 2, 23 amps. Starting temp, 23.1, 22.9. I love how it changes after I write it down. 22.9. 389. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes here. The number to beat, we're at 371. Number to beat the amp pace at 3 minutes, to remember, is 366 or 367. Doesn't look like we're going to do it. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. We're not going to beat the amp pace, that's for sure. Are we going to even tie the previous one? So we're at 30.8. 30.8. And again, no, 362. 30.8 and 362. Okay, we're back after another long charging pause. So now starting all our different high amp tests, first with 23 amps for reset to 0, starting temp 23.3. Yeah, let's see how it does. On the first two tests, these did not outperform the EV50PL, which I was kind of hoping we'd have a new record holder, but let's see how they do on high amps. So, okay, 23.1, so 23.0, still kind of temperature settling there. Are we all set? 23.0. Okay, here we go. $387. 29.1 and 372 at 2 minutes. Okay, and as we're coming up on 3 minutes here, the number to beat for the 50PL is 368. They both did 368. The Molicel P50B was at 357 and 356. We're already at 368, 367, so not beating it. Let's see, we're at 32.8, 32.8, and 366. 32.8 and 366, so worse. The first one did worse than the EV50PL. 366 versus 368, so a little bit worse. Okay, so starting temp, 23.4 as it settles. Here we go. $388. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. 28.8. 372. 368 is the number to beat from the 50PL, and we're already there. Nope, we're already lower. Well, unfortunately, they're not performing any better than the EVEs. So we're at 32.3, 366. 32.3, 366. Same as the other cell. Okay, 30 amp. RS40 number 1, hot off the charger. 30 amp. By the way, I'm going to test all these other samples I have of the cells. Not going to do the full battery test because it takes one full day to do one cell of all tests. But I think I'm going to run this 30 amp later on all of them just to check for consistency. But anyway, so we're at 30 amp. We'll compare it to the JP40. Starting temp 24.8. Here we go. $384. I just want to mention one thing. Oh, too dark. Sorry about that. I just want to mention one thing quickly. They seem to be doing really well on initial voltage drop. They're doing worse than the 40PLs, obviously, you know, at the end of the test. But hold on, I'll make that darker. Strength, power of the cell. You're gonna see by the 3 minute result, but the initial voltage drop. That's what you really, sorry, go back, normal exposure. That's what you really feel, for example, in an E-moto with Suron, with a motocross start or taking off on a green light or a drag race. That initial voltage drop, you know, that's what really gives you the feel more than, you know, the voltage drop over 3 minutes. So kind of interesting. We'll have to see if that trend continues with the RS50, but if so, need to definitely make a point about that maybe these don't do as well after 3 minutes for voltage drop, but maybe they do really well on initial voltage drop, which is kind of a whole new, you know, a whole different parameter. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes, so I'll stop talking here. 35.4. By the way, to beat the amp pace, 352 and 353, so we're already below the amp pace. 36.4 and 348. Okay, 30 amp on Reliance RS40 number 3. We got audio, we're recording. Okay, starting temp 24.4. Here we go. 383. 383 and 24.4. 40 has the best, meaning the lowest, initial voltage drop at 30 amps of any cell that I've ever tested. Power. So now I'm excited to see the RS50, and hopefully they do even better. Okay, here we go, finishing up. 37.4 and 348. Ready to do 30 amps on the RS50. So on the RS50 is 30 amps. So starting temp 22.5. Just off the charger, even though, there we go, 421, whatever. 22.3. 379. Okay, as we're coming up to 2 minutes here, I know it's going to be too bright. So the number we're trying to beat here on the EVs, 357 and 355. Okay, and I can already tell we're not going to beat the EV 50PL, so the same story continues. 50PL, these pre-production are better. 39.8 and 353. 22.9. I'm already seeing a pattern emerge here, which kind of bums me out a little bit, which is, so far, they're all doing worse than the 50PL. No, the pre-production ones I have. Okay, 22.9, here we go. .380. Coming up on 2 minutes. 34.4 and 361. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes here, and the numbers to beat on the 50PLs are 357 and 355. So you can see already we're not going to do that. 50PL did better. 10. 39.9 and 353. Not a huge difference, but you know, like I said, I was kind of bummed. I was hoping that these were gonna not necessarily blow away, but have some revelation that they would be better. And so far, on all these tests, they're not performing any better than the 50PLs that I've already tested. I just realized I recorded the whole thing. Okay, so here we go. I'll see again. Just use that microphone. So we're doing all the other cells that I have tested for consistency. So 79. So we're 341 and 349. 349. Okay, we're doing this one. Okay, so we're doing here. It's the next day. We're saying again. I'm going to do this on 43. So briefly, what we're doing here is the other 3 of 5 cell, the other 3 of each cell. We're testing for consistency. No, we're going to do ACR, we're going to do 3 amp test, and capacity for all of them to check consistency. So the first one, 3 amp test, we're going to do the other ones, and then the RS50 same thing. You want to squeeze things over here? Well, I do capacity because capacity is not a way. Do the average test. Can't for the result. It takes 8 hours per battery. So I still don't have 10 hours times 10 cells. That doesn't have to do with 100 hours of capacity testing to do this on one. So I have a second tester, but I don't have every sample, so it's still fascinating. So anyway, that's the explanation. Now, first one's done. Let's do the second. Okay, here we go. For number 5. Low starting temperature. 18.3. Here we go. 380. Okay, I'm going to go to the other RS40, so we're going to test. They did 348. Let's test, so we're going to break this. 340, 349. 349. Okay, RS40 number 2. Number 2. Let's switch these 1 second. 64, and number 2. Starting at 18.4. And here we go. 380. That's it. Okay, come on, 5 minutes. 320. Okay, come on, 5 minutes. I'm seeing a great super consistency with RS40s. It's more fascinating. 341, 349. 341, 349. And well, how's that consistency? 349, and our main one is 30 amp. My thumb is the 2 did 348 and 348. So I see that's great consistency. And again, these cells, these 5 cells are from 2 different batches, so that's great consistency. Okay, we have 3 other RS50s now. And testing RS50 cells just full charge and stop them on the charger now. Be sure they're as full charge as possible. So starting at 18.9, here we go. 376. Okay, come on, 5 minutes here. Comparison the other big battery tests, those did 353. So 367, 353, pretty consistency. And show percent here. This one is tested. These are all different batches. So I tested. That's V, and this one. So you have different batches. Okay, so here's next. Here's next. RS50, we're bringing here. We are reset. Here we go. 375. Okay, come on, 5 minutes here. Yeah, show really consistency. Again, all the other cells in the main group tested 353. 380 and 352. Okay, I'm finding the last RS50 starting at 19.8. Here we go. 378. Wait, a little better. Okay, we go last RS50 3 amps. Same really nice consistency, I think. Okay, we're 376. 353, 379, 353. 25.2. Maybe it's going to cool down more. Anyway, okay, we go by the machine. So 25.2. And we're going to start 30 amps. 419, but it just came off the charger. Here we go, 420. .380. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. We're at 43.0 and 353. How about that? 43.5 and 353. Okay, RS50 from Nencon, number 6. Starting temp 24.4, fully charged, 30 amps. So here we go. .379. Number 6 from Encon. So temp 43.3, 353. How about that? Okay, after a couple hour pause for charging, we're back. RS40, 35 amps. I think what I'm going to do is just in the interest of time, because doing one of these cell tests takes pretty much the whole day from 7 a.m. until 1 a.m. And since these are tracking, it's going to be too bright, but basically 363, 364, 73, 74, 348, 348, both of these are testing essentially identically. So instead of doing both at 35 and both at 40, I'm going to do one at 35 and one at 40 just to save time, because each charging cycle takes a couple hours. Then I guess we'll do them both for 50 and 60. So 24.1 starting, and here we go. 35. $377. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. 42.1, so we're less than plus 20 Celsius. That's really good. That's quite impressive. So we're at 42.6 and 339. Okay, ready for the next one. 35 on the RS50s. Because these cells are, and it's going to be overexposed, tracking basically identically for every test. In the interest of time, I'm just going to do one cell at 35 and one at 40, and then we'll get down to the higher amps, because each time I have to, after every test, we got 2 hours of charging, so it just kind of takes forever. So anyway, so here we are at 35, 21.5 is our starting temp, 21.5, here we go. $372. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes here. The number we're looking to match, or beat I should say, on the 50 PL at 35 is 347. Oh, hold on, we're at 353 and 36.8. As I was saying, what we're looking to beat, again, and we did not. We're already below those at 346. 15 seconds left on the test. No, we'll test all these other ones and see, maybe another one will perform better, but very unlikely. Okay, here we go. So we're at 43.6 and 343. Okay, so here we go. 40 amps on RS40 number 3. Starting temp 23.9. We're reset. Everything is good to go. 23.9. Here we go. $361. 23.9. The amp paces were 342 and 342. The 50 PL was 348 and 347. So again, after 3 minutes, did worse than the amp pace. What about initial voltage drop? It was 377 for the RS40. The 50 PL was 373. Amp paces were 365 and 372. So again, at we have audio here. At 35 amps, the RS40 has the best initial voltage drop of any cell that I've ever tested. Very cool. Okay, she's working hard. We're coming up on 3 minutes with 40 amps. We're at 48.4. 48.2. Went down. 49.0. 49.0 ending temp. 324. Okay, here we go. Straight to 40 amps. Like I said, I'm just doing one cell each for 35 and 40 because these are ridiculously consistent. No need really to do two for every test, and in the interest of time. So, starting temp, a cool 21.9, hot off the charger, cool off the charger, 21.8. So here we go, 21.8. $368. Okay, coming to 2 minutes here, we're at 40.8 Celsius and 346. Change exposure here. So the number we're looking to beat, for 40 amps, we did 338 and 339 on the EVEs. 338 and 339 The P50B was way down at 321, 322, and we are not going to beat it. It is already apparent. We're already below that. So we're at 49.6, 335. 49.6, 335. Okay, so where are we at with these higher amp results? Let's go over the results really quick, and then obviously I'll do in more detail with the charts and everything. Okay, back to the 50 and 60 amp setup. We got the small one here on 10 amps, if you can see that. Big one on 40. Going to do one cell at 50 and one at 60 since these are very consistent with each other. And each test takes 2 hours of recharging time, so I think we'll get the good representative results here. Let's see there. So we're at 40 and 10 here. Starting temp 23.9. 23.9. I'll write that down. So here we go in 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, go. $364. 23.9 and 364. So both are running there. That one's running. Gonna measure it at 1 minute and 2 minutes. 32.9, 343. 32.9 and 343. Okay, we're still recording. Good. We still have audio. That's good. We're at 1:45, 40C. How this compares to the amp pace, I have no idea. We'll have to do that afterward. So we are at 43.0 and 327. Okay, so we're back to 50 amp. This time I'll try and do it correctly with the negative and positive leads connected from both discharge thingies, since I kind of forgot to do that one. No, the reason is when you take the battery off, you have to disconnect that because it moves. Anyway, so my excuses are done. This is number 3, RS50. We're going to do this one at 50 amps and do the other one at 60. So that guy's on 10. You can't see me pointing. This is on 40. We reset the time, so we got to do 3, 2, 1 countdown. Starting temp 21.4. 21.4. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, start. $361, 1 minute. 345 and 33.7. 345 and 33.7. But these do not perform as well. Okay, we're at 1:30. Temp seems to be staying pretty low, only 42C, although we started kind of low. Don't want my head to be in the shot there. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. Awesome. Okay, 46.4 and 333. 46.4 and 333. Okay, it's midnight. Been doing this all day. We're doing 60 amps. So if you can see, this guy is on 20. And like usual, that one's on 40. Yeah, just doing one of each cell at this rate because they're consistent. So starting temp 24.7. 24.7. We're on 40 amps there, 20 amps here. So we do the countdown and we measure at 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 2 minutes. Okay, 24.6. 3, 2, 1, go. $357. Okay, 343 at 30 seconds. Recording, got audio, okay, good. Okay, coming up on a minute. 39.0, 332. we'll have to do the comparisons after. JP40 I only ran out to 1 minute. Now we're doing all these 60 amps, 2 minutes. It's fine, we're nowhere near LVC or high temp cutoff, but still pushing it a bit. Okay, so we're 53.8 and 315. 53.8 and 315. 20 amps, if you can see that on there. 40 amps on the big one, like usual. So let's go. 2 minutes, 60 amps. Starting temp 19.8. Hope that's accurate. Okay, we got to go 3, 2, 1, start. So we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, start. Time is reset. Okay, 3, 2. Everything's on there. 3, 2, 1, go. $350 seconds, 1 minute and 2. 340, 30 seconds. The EVEs were 345 and 347, so this is lower. I'll tell you what they were at 1 minute after we measure this one. So 1 minute, 37.6, 335, 335. EVEs 342 and 339. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. The EVEs did 329 and 326. 329, 326. Molicel did 319. Okay, here we go. 57 and 324. 57.0 and 324. I thought maybe the Reliances would do better, you know, they were holding out for the high amp test to really show their stuff, but no. At least compared to these pre-production EVEs, obviously waiting for the full production ones, like I've said a million times. When I get those, I'll test them. When I get the RS50s from Encon, test those to see if there's any difference. But for what I have so far, which is Reliance from Alibaba, 2 different suppliers, and EVE pre-production from Alibaba, so far, EVE is pretty unquestionably the best performing tablet cell I've ever tested, and the best performing 21700 cell in general. Okay, now for the most exciting test. So I have 2 machines set up here, the normal one and then the kludgy stand. I am doing them both at 0.7 amps, if you can see that. Normally I do at 0.5 or 0.6, but simply don't have time to do it at a slower rate because that takes 10 hours per cell. I have 10 battery capacity tests to do now. So 10 hours per cell would be 100 hours on one machine doing battery capacity tests. So here we go. Everything obviously is fully charged right off the charger. So there, 0.7. I will try, hold on, we'll start this one. We're running, okay. So both are running now, 0.7 amps. I will see if, okay, towards the end of the capacity test, and just want to make a note here, so to burst everybody's bubble. We just went below 3 volts. I got these both set on the same settings, and we're at 45.18, 45.17. I don't know if this has a little parasitic load or not. The voltage is slightly less on this one. Anyway, sorry to burst your bubble, but so we just passed 3 volts, right? Which is your normal LVC, which should be your LVC. And what capacity we have? No, not 5,000, 4520. Actually, I think it was around 4510 at 3 volts for that one. And we'll see here, we're at 3.03, but I'll check it out once we hit 3 volts and see where we're at on there too. But the point is, if you didn't understand my meaning, so these cells are, and like all cells, they're rated, you know, nominal for capacity of 5,000, just like the 50S and the 50PL. But that manufacturers rate those down to 2.5 volts, which is, it makes the cells look better, but it's ridiculous because it's never used in real life, real practical usage, and it's very damaging for the cells. So in practical terms, the real capacity you're getting is much less than 5,000. So you see here, we're still not down to 3 volts. We'll check when we're at 3, but we're at 4531, 4532. So yeah, your real world capacity that you're going to see is going to be like 4,500 or maybe even a little less than that. And keep in mind also, I'm doing a real low current draw of 0.7 amps. Your capacity that you have in the cell, it goes down when you're drawing more. So if you're doing normal, riding like on an E-moto where you're pulling, 2 3 amps and then 10 amps and then 20 and then 10 and then 5, you're going to actually see less capacity in there. Okay, so there we go. Like I said, sorry to burst everyone's bubble, but so everyone's bubble, but so we're at 3 volts. This is the RS50 number 3 to be exact, and there we are at 4590. So again, the point is where your low voltage cutoff should be for battery, for taking care of your battery, not killing it. Minimum really is 3 volts. You're only at below 4,600 milliamp hour capacity, not 5,000, not 49, not 48, less than 4,600, so almost 10% less. So just so you're aware of it, when and it's not just Reliance, every battery manufacturer is guilty of this, that when they say 5,000 capacity, that is under absolute ideal conditions. First of all, low load, and second of all, it's down to 2.5 volts. So we'll see how these do down to 2.5, but just wanted to make the point that where you should do your LVC at, you're not getting you're getting quite a bit less capacity than that. Okay, so there's your result at 2.8, 4933. 4933. That's not terrible, to be honest. I mean, 2.8 is still abusive. It's not as bad as 2.5, but down to 2.8, which still won't totally kill the battery. No, it kind of will. Almost no cells. Actually, above there. Okay, so this one just finished, and wow, that's impressive, especially because this one is doing worse, a little bit worse than the one on the main tester. 2.5, 5119. So well over the rated capacity. Very cool. Let's see how this one does. Flowers 0.25C is 1.25 amps. So we're going to do the drain test 1.25 for both. This one's still on the first test. And toward the end, I will try to turn down a bit to give the battery a better chance for less voltage drop. But I've had a lot of requests actually for capacity at higher loads, kind of more practical capacity. So anyway, this is still not high load at all, but it is temp increase in voltage drop. But for capacity, look at that, 5,200, and we're right at 250. That's amazing. Holy cow. Yeah, capacity, super impressive. Way over the rated. No, again, down to 3 volts, you're still not going to see 5,000, but going by the industry standard here of 2.5 and all the other ones I've tested, I've never seen one that's gone this much over the rated capacity, and I've never seen a cell that high capacity. So in that regard, Reliance, very cool. Okay, so at 3 volts, we're at 4566. At the lower load, the 0.6, we're at 4590. Let's call it 45. Let's see if we can hit 4570. Yeah, 4570. So not a huge difference, but again, these are super low loads anyway. Okay, and this one is finished, and it went to 5,025 at 1.25 amps, 5025. Okay, so this one just finished and super impressive. So we ended up at 5171 at 0.25C, which is the industry standard, so 1.25 amps. So at the industry standard, still well over the advertised capacity of 5,000. So good job, Reliance. Awesome. Thank you for actually providing more than you advertise, whereas many battery manufacturers are providing actually less than the advertised capacity. Reliance, at least with a 50, we'll see how the 40s do, with a 50 providing more than the advertised capacity, and this is at the industry standard measurement. Okay, so RS40 at 2 amps is coming under 3 volts. Let's see where we're at. It's so exciting to watch battery capacity tests, I know. Okay, an RS50 that's been going at 2.5 amps, 0.5C, just hit 3 volts. So where are we at? 4477. Okay, this one is done. RS40 at 2 amps. So we're a little under 4,000, 3951. I think at, lower draw, it's gonna do, we'll do okay. So yeah, 2 amps, 3951. I noticed that the voltage dropped down really quick between 2.8 and 2.5. Okay, here we are, 2.5 amps down to 2.8, and we're at 48, let's call it 4820. Okay, this one's done. So 2.5 amps on the RS50. That's impressive. We still did above rated capacity, and let me tell you that dip from 2.8 down to 2.5 happens really quickly, and obviously we're having voltage drop too, so because it's 2.5 amps. So yeah, 5104, impressive. So 2.5 amps, still above rated capacity, very cool. So this one at 5 amps went down pretty quickly, pretty fast. Here we are at 3 volts, 3636. Yeah, that's definitely going down quickly. So 2.80, ooh, we are at 3808 we were at. Okay, so we finished at 5 amps. That's where we are, 3915. Still pretty impressive. 5 amps is a decent amount of load, and I'm sure if I had, turned it down to like 0.5 for the last portion, we would have definitely gotten quite a bit more out. You're getting significant voltage drop, especially at the bottom end of the charge. So could we have hit 4,000 if we dropped it down at the end? I think so, probably. But anyway, 5 amps from start to finish, top to bottom, 3915. So it definitely reduces it, and I think that's still pretty good performance. Okay, this is a little strange. This one at 3 amps, we just hit 3 volts. I'll try to give it 3480, 3480, less than the other two. Strange. Okay, so this one, number 4, is finished at 3 amps, and yeah, kind of strange. It did less than the other, so I was not sure why that variation is, but we only did 3883, and again, that one was at 3 amps. Okay, the last 2 capacity tests. Thank the Lord. So these are going to go at a nice slow 0.5 amp rate, if you can see that there. Nice slow 0.5 to give the best possible result. It's going to run overnight, about 8 hours, and yeah, that's it. So let's see how they do at this low rate. One thing I noticed, I'll go over the results in full when it's done, but like I was mentioning, all the RS50s have been over the rated capacity, even at higher draws. The RS40s, well, I've only tested higher draws so far, but they haven't been at overrated capacity. I have a feeling that at this low draw, they're going to do, better than 4,000. So, good night. See you tomorrow. Okay, both of these are done from overnight. This one, that's really cool. Over 4,000, did 4,085. This one, however, 3917. I noticed that right away, like after 1 minute, this one had more voltage drop than that. So, by the way, these were both at 0.5 amps. Okay, so they're finally here. The RS50s from Encon. The funny thing is, as soon as I saw them on the site, I knew I had to get them because Encon obviously is a trusted seller. You're not going to get fake or pre-production or anything like that. So, ordered them almost a month ago. Been waiting over 3 weeks to get them here in Ukraine. And the hilarious thing is, they are the same batch exactly as I got from Alibaba, same cells. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and test them and just check and make sure that, see if there's any difference in performance, which there shouldn't be. Yeah. Okay, number 6, capacity. Going to do it at the industry standard of 0.25C, which is 1.25 amps. Normally I do it about half that. Okay, we just went below 3, 4587. Let's call it 4570 at 3 volts. Hard to watch this all the time. Okay, we're at 2.8 on this one. What are we at? 4875. That's pretty good. I think close to the highest one I've tested so far. Okay, so number 6 finished, and wow, that's pretty damn impressive because this, again, this wasn't done at my super low amp rate, to tenderly, gingerly drain it. This was done at the industry standard of 0.25C, so 1.25 amps, and look, and not even like super warm ambient temperature either. And look, we hit 5141. So yeah, again, RS50 is impressed with. Now keep in mind though, that's at 2.5 volts. So, but if you're looking at 2.8. 4875, not that far off 5000, but down to 3 volts, which is as low as you ever should be taking it, you're only looking at under 4600. So okay, 4 a.m. Got up to check this. 300. We are at 4642. Okay, 5 a.m. We're at 2.8, and let's see if we can hit 4970. This is the highest I've measured of any cell at 2.8, 4970, which is great, but again, it's still not 5,000. Okay, finished. Ended up at 5238. Pretty impressive. I think that's the highest capacity I've ever tested on a cell. But again, 2.5, not the ending voltage you want to go to. Okay, so what's the conclusion after all of this? How can I briefly summarize this? Well, we need to talk about how these compare to these, the RS50s versus the now famous EV50PL, and also talk about how these RS40 4000 milliamp compare to my favorite previously, the Ampace JP40, and then in general how everything compares to the gold standard, which is the P50B right there. So let's first, for the conclusion, briefly talk about pricing. It's kind of quick to go over. Let's talk about RS40 first and the Ampace JP40, which is this competition in my mind. RS40s, again, Alibaba, 200 quantity pricing. This is what I'm talking about, not retail US store. They're about $250 approximately. I'll put on the screen a couple graphics from some different listings. So RS40 is about $250. The JP40 is plus or minus the same, so similar cost. So pricing is pretty similar there. There is an interesting difference in pricing on the RS50 versus the EV50PL. The RS50s are quite a bit more expensive. On the Alibaba listings I've seen, I'll put on the screen here, they're averaging about $3.80, $3.90 to $4 for the Reliance, whereas the EV50PLs are significantly cheaper. Again, these are still pre-production. These are going for about $2.80, $2.90 to $3 range. So about 33% more, the Reliance are 33% more than the EVs. So pretty significant difference. But the Molicel P50B is way more expensive than everything else because of the fire at the Molicel factory. Prices have gone up, and these are now $6, $7, $8 each. So both of these are significantly cheaper. Okay, then, so what's my conclusion about all these guys? Well, first about the RS50. It performed really well, as you saw in the test. It did, in general, really good, but in almost every test, it did slightly worse than the EV50PL. The EV50PL in almost everything, came out on top. Of course, it did much better, pretty much every test, than the P50B, pretty much also trounced the P50B. But capacity, this is where the Reliance really seems to set themselves apart. Capacity was much better for almost all the samples than the EV50PL. Again, keep in mind these are pre-production, so that may change, but capacity was much better. In fact, one of these had the highest capacity I've ever tested, like over 5,200. So capacity did really good. But the thing is, it gives me a little bit of concern. Both the RS40 there and the RS50, they had quite a bit more variation in both capacity and ACIR than I would like to see, and that I've seen from other brands. So maybe there's a production issue there, or maybe it's a different grade A and grade B, but they had a bit more variation. About the RS40, well, in most tests it did slightly worse than my favorite Ampace JP40, slightly worse, pretty close though. But one area where the RS40 did amazingly well in, as you saw in the test, amazingly well, is an initial voltage drop. It did really well in that regard, so that's really cool. About cost, like I said, I just talked about pricing. RS50 quite a bit more expensive than the EV50PL. Both of them are much less than the Ampace, than the Molicel P50B. So you know, pricing, you got to keep that in mind. And lastly, about cycle life, well, it still is a bit of a question because these are currently just starting being tested for long-term cycle life. Paja on Endless Fear from Czech Republic, he said that the RS50 and the EV50PL both are doing better than the P50B on cycle life, and that's doing really good, did really good in his tests anyway. So cycle life appears to be good. Anyway, they're both great performing cells, a little bit different, more power on the EVE, a bit more capacity on the Reliance, and which one you choose, well, I guess that's up to you. And in the next video, I'll tell you which one that I will choose. So again, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.